At West High School in Knoxville, a building with a unique shape stands on the edge of campus. Today, the sounds of basketball practice echo where the city of Knoxville originally built this facility as a sound studio in the 1960s. Mayor John Duncan said it would attract lights, cameras, and action to East Tennessee.
A lot of areas have mountains and lakes that they can go out on location and make motion pictures, but very few of them have a sound studio, and we think with the completion of this sound studio that we'll really be in the driver's market.
The James Agee Memorial Motion Picture Studio was a cornerstone to capitalize on the momentum of the city's first big studio film, All the Way Home, a movie based on a novel written by Knoxville native James Agee. But to get the city to approve funding, the mayor agreed to make it dual purpose, a recreation center when it wasn't being used for movies.
This building will be used primarily for indoor athletics such as basketball, volleyball, badminton, and so forth. This building will be a fine recreation facility along with urging the motion picture industry to come to Knoxville.
Within 5 years, the studio obviously was not luring Hollywood producers, and it became part of West High School, where it still stands as the James Agee Building. While this may not have been Knoxville's big break, the city is still in the business of attracting films to the region, thanks to the work of Curt Willis and Visit Knoxville.
The film office opened back in 2014, and one of the big films that we got shortly after that was a film that was originally called Dog Years. It was Burt Reynolds' last film, starred Burt, of course, and Chevy Chase. The title ended up being The Last Movie Star. Knoxville actually doubled as Los Angeles for part of the film. It doubled as Nashville. It had a lot of looks in the film. So that kind of proved that a lot of different types of features can be shot here. But that was back in 2016, and then since then, we've had about 20 films in the last 6 years that have been recruited to Knoxville, so things are going well.
10.
Before the film office was open, the last big film was October Sky with Jake Gyllenhaal. You know, that was the last kind of studio type film that was here. We're in a very competitive region. Georgia, obviously, you know, they're shooting Marvel films there. But as far as independent film, I don't think there's any better place to film than Knoxville. We got the resources you need as far as crews. You don't have to bring them all in. We've got incentives as far as state and local level incentives. We are just now in the state starting a tax credit, and I think it's going to be a game changer. It's going to allow us to bring in larger projects. Producers love to have an office to go to as like a one-stop shop for all their resources. We help with just about everything that a film needs. We help with getting them great hotel rates. We help with them finding crew. We do some initial location scouting. We do all the permits, which are very easy and free here. We can look like a big city, a small town. We can have lakes and rivers and forests and a small town look. This is one that was shot a couple of years ago, Into the Wilderness, a Civil War themed film, shot here entirely. It's called Marbles and Bullets now. And it should be out actually at some point this year or early next year. Behind me, I've got a couple of posters of films that have shot her recently. The PureFlix film, Nothing is Impossible, and Memento Mori, which both entirely in Knoxville. So when people come here and film and they realize this is a great place to film their independent features, they come back. So we're getting a lot of return customers now. A lot of people don't realize this many films are coming through Knoxville now, and we're actually becoming a player in the independent film world. And that's what we're trying to get the word out about now, especially to producers that are looking for a home for their next project. The community here is very much behind what we do here at the film office, very supportive, so it's just the perfect place.
Howdy.
What are you doing on my farm?
We live here.
We rented this place from your son.
I'm Larsen Jay. I'm the executive producer of That Evening Sun, and we're here on set where it was filmed in Blount County. The story itself takes place on a Tennessee country farm, and a place that is a bit removed from the normal everyday life, but also has beautiful countryside around it that really represented what the main character was longing to come home to. But of course, when we shot the film here, it would have been packed with trucks and people and gear and all of the things that it takes to make a movie. When I think of That Evening Sun, I think of the true Tennessee filmmaking experience. This was a short story by Tennessee author William Gay called I Hate to See That Evening Sun Go Down. And to be able to say we found this story that needed to be told, that we worked with a world-class team of actors, including Hal Holbrook and Mia Wasikowska and Walton Goggins and Ray McKinnon.
What'd you do, Lonzo?
You want this land? You're gonna have to take it.
A great film. We put together an amazing story. We won South by Southwest. We went on to win 22 other festivals, but we were really focused on shooting That Evening Sun here in East Tennessee, just because it was authentic to get the best out of the story. Well, I think the pros and cons of shooting a film in East Tennessee are certainly the pros are you get that authentic feel, you get a different vibe, a different pace, really a different flavor for the film. I think the cons, of course, are the available gear or people or production elements or all the different services that are normally around a hub of a production center like New York or in LA or even Atlanta. And so when we shot here in East Tennessee, we ran into all different types of challenges, and we would just sort of take a down-home approach and go, you know what, we'll figure it out. We'll talk to this person, we'll talk to this neighbor. It was much more community-based, and so we got things done where normally if you were shooting the same thing in Los Angeles, it would take 3 or 4 days to set up, and in 3 or 4 hours we had it figured out because the community was so excited about shooting here and being part of the production.
Oh boy.
Now, new generations of filmmakers are realizing you don't have to be in LA or New York or Atlanta to be able to create something great. East Tennessee, especially Knoxville, has a wonderful production community. We have talented filmmakers, we have talented camera editors, lights, sound, set, decoration, makeup, hair, casting. We have all of the elements that you could ever want to tell a great story.
Try to be polite, make this easy, but you ain't gonna have that, are you?
Mama! This is my place, and will be my place till they lay me in the ground.
Everyone who worked on That Evening Sun, I mean, hundreds of people in our community came together, brought this story to life, and delivering a story that I hope most of East Tennessee can be proud of.
Cut! Cut, cut, cut! Cut, cut, very nice. Second, take your hands.
I've never done this. I've never felt something like this.
I'm Paul Harrill, and I'm a filmmaker, and I'm also the co-chair of the Cinema Studies program at the University of Tennessee. I've made a couple of feature films, one called Light from 2019.
Something magical has happened to me, like a dream, when you're frightened, panic-stricken, and all of a sudden you wake up and all the horrors are no more.
Another called Something Anything from 2014. And then I've made a number of short films as well. I grew up in Knoxville. I first got interested in filmmaking when I was really young. I mean, the first things I ever did were, I wrote a sequel to Star Wars before The Empire Strikes Back, like as a play, and put that on as a play when I was in first grade. Pretty much everything I've written and directed has been set in Knoxville and or greater Knoxville area. Ended up making my first Super 8 film when I was in college. University of Tennessee, where I was a student, didn't have a film program at that time. And so I made stuff on my own and then went to film school at Temple University in Philadelphia. So in 2001, I made a short film called Gina, an Actress Aged 29, and it was the first film that I made after finishing film school. It was almost entirely local.
You can just let me out anywhere. I'd like to walk around for a while.
Your car's just a little ways away.
I know.
That film went on to win the jury prize at the Sundance Film Festival in 2001. So that was obviously really exciting for me and also I think for a lot of members of the film community here that our work was recognized on a national or even really international stage.
They're actors!
I thought that might lead to some opportunities for me to make my first feature, and it continued to be a real challenge to get a movie off of the ground.
I'll understand if you never want to hire me again.
A few years after that, I made another short film, and it was a film about a minor league baseball player and his fiancée.
Don't close up on me.
One of the primary locations for that was Smokey's Ballpark out in Sevierville. Again, that movie was largely made with local cast and crew from East Tennessee. With Something Anything, we didn't go out to try to make a movie that was sort of like an advertisement for Knoxville, but we did end up capturing a lot of really sort of maybe iconic places in Knoxville. We filmed in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and filmed the synchronous fireflies. I'm sure it's the first fiction film to feature those, and part of that is because the technology didn't even exist. So it was so impossible to film those fireflies. So my second feature, Light from 2019, locations in that. The most important one really is Strongstock Farm. It's a film about a widower who thinks the farmhouse where he lives might be haunted by his deceased wife's ghost.
I think if the place was haunted by someone from a long time ago, Suzanne and I would have seen it.
That farmhouse, it's almost like a character in the movie. We filmed at the airport. We filmed in the Smokies again. I try to use the landscape. There were a number of crew involved in that film from East Tennessee. Knoxville's always had a surprisingly good production community. For a city of its size, it's probably one of the strongest production communities in the country because we've had a history of television production here. The other thing is the university, I think that's also a thing that's really changed, is that University of Tennessee now does have a cinema studies program, and there are students doing production there. There is a major now, and people are sticking around. One of the most exciting parts about me teaching at UT is that there wasn't a program like that when I was an undergraduate at UT, and so I have the opportunity to teach students that were like myself. One of the things that I so appreciate about making movies here is that people aren't jaded, and so when you come to somebody and say, hey, we would like to shoot a film in the airport, people aren't like, no, or that'll be $50,000 for your location fee or something like that. The kinds of horror stories I hear from my friends in New York or LA or wherever, people are like excited. They want to support you, especially if you're from here and you're telling a story that's really grounded here. It's a phenomenally supportive place in that way. The challenge is just that pretty predictable. I mean, this isn't New York or LA, and we don't have the massive infrastructure that those cities have. That's challenging, and it's challenging when I'm casting a film to convince sometimes talking with an actor and talking them through the idea of so you're gonna come down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and we're gonna make a movie here, and it's gonna be different than, being in your trailer, on set in New York or LA or whatever. But it's, as a producer friend of mine would say, hopefully, the juice is worth the squeeze, when you're making a film like that. So, but there are pros and cons to it. Cinema is not just an art form, it's also a social experience. And for us to see, as audiences, our place on screen is very validating. And when you live in that place where those stories are set, it's an opportunity to interact with a story that might connect with your life in a way that no other story can.